Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a Fallout 76 discussion video. This time around we're going to be covering, you guessed it, another patch to Fallout 76. This time it's focusing not on PvP and the survival beta, which I was not impressed with last time, but the PvE content in the newly added questline. Not just one quest, but multiple quests throughout Fallout 76 surrounding cryptids, which is a big focal point of this game's universe. On top of that, it received naturally bug fixes, some balancing, and also a much needed news screen upon logging in, which is the most apparent part of the update. Right when you sign in, you can see something fresh and new that the game really needed. I say all the time that people aren't constantly glued to social media. In fact, a lot of people are starting to unplug more, which I totally get because social media can be pretty toxic. But anyway, this is really good for the game because right when you sign in, you're told what's new in the latest update. So in this case, we're being told about the quest line, some balancing, and of course some new additions to the Atomic Shop, which personally I think is reasonable to draw some fair attention to it without going overboard and shoving it down your throat. A lot of online games do this, so I think it makes sense why 76 would do it. But what I'm going to be focusing on in this update, of course, is the quest line. What everyone really cares about here is the PvE content. How close is Fallout 76 getting to a traditional Fallout game? And the good news here is that I think 76 took a step in the right direction with this quest line, because often what you can boil down pretty much any 76 quest to is going here, killing this, and that's it. But this time around, it was all based around storytelling. It was a lot of investigating. So the general premise of this is, like I said, based off the cryptids, or the mythical creatures that roam the Appalachia. So what you're doing is you head to this family's taxidermy, and inside their business, you are searching through terminals, notes, and learning that their son, Calvin, is actually very much invested in the cryptids in the local area. And so now what you're doing is following in his footsteps, finding out what happened to him, what he was up to, and it actually turns into 76 developing its own form of a cryptid called the Sheep Squatch, which I don't want to spoil for anyone because I actually thought it was a solid questline. Now, what is different between this one versus what 76 normally brings to the table? Well, like I said, it's the lack of combat. There were only 2 segments throughout this 2-hour questline that I felt I had to fight. Most of this was spent reading, investigating, breaking into terminals, taking information in, learning about the universe, learning about the characters. Since it had a more focused feel to it, it was a much stronger questline. We actually learned recently with Todd Howard during PAX East that Fallout 76 had a troubled development, and obviously the product at launch showed. But once we see more focus being put into these quests, we can see some of the positives starting to be brought out on Fallout 76's storytelling. Not saying it'll change the game, but this was actually a solid questline. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite in the game. I'll go to that length. Yes, Fallout 76 doesn't have that top level storytelling in the first place, so there really isn't a high bar to cross, but still, it's a step in the right direction, and I really enjoyed what I found here because there wasn't that focus on combat. There's plenty of content surrounding killing people, killing things, looting things. This time around, it was let's learn about the universe, let's learn about this new addition coming to the Appalachia, and I really appreciated that. Now, there were 2 frustrating aspects about the questline. I have to be completely honest on that front as well. Number 1 was that a lot of it was go here, and then they would put a radius way marker where you'd have to look around an entire area, and I spent an ample amount of time searching for one single item, which was a holotape on a table in a corner, and was very difficult to find. Maybe easier for some, but for me, I get frustrated by the radial waypoints. I get that it gets you to investigate these locations, but considering these locations aren't new, I didn't see why Bethesda had to make us search up and down this entire building 3 times over to find a item. Now, that may just be my experience, but what I think everyone else will experience is when you come to the conclusion of this quest line where you actually are going to fight the Sheep Squatch. And now what happens here is that you need certain items to call in the Sheep Squatch, which you don't get through the quest line, or at least I didn't. Now, I've had some reports when I asked via social media, hey, did anyone get X amount of items here to call in the Sheep Squatch? People said they did through the questline, some people said they didn't, some said you could buy them through vendors. So I think I got unlucky. I believe my quest bugged. I did not get the items mandatory to call in the Sheep Squatch. However, you can go to the vendor and get one of the items, and then the flux that you need, you only get through Yep, a Scorch Beast Queen. So that's where I got a little teed off because I thought to myself, man, this is the one thing that gets in the game's way because we have a great quest line here that now I need to loop into the endgame content to get said item. Is it the end of the world? No. Does it compel you to play the game in a different form? Yes. Maybe for those who don't want to do this, it's an extra hoop to jump through, but still, I don't think it's the end of the world. Like I said, it was not a bad thing, it was more a frustrating thing. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that without spoiling the content within the quest line. Just know you probably don't want the quest bugging on you, because if it does, you're going to be spending a lot of your time either hunting down the items via the endgame content, or provided that you actually get the items via the quest, you'll be good to go. What I did notice while playing this is that Fallout 76's map is already beginning to overlap. In a lot of points in this quest line, they reuse terminals that had other purposes in the world. And to me, that screamed that the world is starting to feel crowded for the developers if they couldn't put in a new terminal or put in a new letter somewhere, but they had to reuse a location that was already in use for something else. So for example, you head to the Garahan estate, and when you go up to the top floor, normally you have a terminal that's reserved for this area. But now what's been added to that is a new section for this guy you're tracking called Wolf. Furthermore, when you go back there after the quest line's done, it's completely gone. So it seems like it was just a quick way to add in new text without having to create new assets and add them to the map, which maybe saves some performance. God knows, anything added to Fallout 76's map really does bog down the performance. But speaking of the Garahan estate, I do have to say that this was a location back at the launch of the game that when I went to on the 3rd level and you looked out into the map and all the combat was happening, that my performance tanked. But when I was actually playing it here and I had to clear the area out again naturally, there actually wasn't a humongous performance dip, which I had to say I was pretty happy about. It does show that Fallout 76 in some ways is getting better, at least technologically, but still there is work underneath the surface that must be done. But overall, I have to say that I did enjoy this quest line. I am very upset that the way it concluded did not go in my favor, but at the end of the day, I'm glad I did my research and made sure that you can get these items outside of the quest line. It's not just that the quest solely bugged out for me and that was it, because then obviously I'd be a lot more infuriated than I am at this point in time, which is more so, okay, it's just an extra hoop to jump through. I'm not trying to be ultra forgiving. If you checked out my survival mode video, you know I am more than willing to rail Bethesda for doing something incredibly silly. Now, to add a little bit of disappointment to the mix as well was that after I was in that location towards the end of the quest line, I saw people running around with the end quest reward, which was a pretty funny outfit. I was really upset, man. That was the part that was the biggest gut punch of them all. Man, I can't have that outfit, and especially because you want to get as many cosmetics in this game as possible because it can just layer over that armor you get. So for me, that was also incredibly disappointing, but overall, I'm happy that the storytelling was there, and that was a focal point for this quest. You can tell there was a determination there to deliver us something refreshing, and I think that's very important given the fact that we have the Wastelanders DLC coming at the end of this year, which is looking to add choice and consequence and have a real big focus on storytelling. So seeing that they're making the right steps here with the Wild Appalachia update, at least in the terms of storytelling in this part of the quest line, I'm very happy about, and I can't wait to see what they do with that part, because I think that's where all our hearts are resting. Right now, Wild Appalachia may or may not suck at the end of the day. Same thing with Nuclear Winter, but at the end of it all, we care about Wastelanders because that can be what truly saves Fallout 76. But anyway, I don't want to go off track any more than I have. I just want to let you all know that yes, the newest quest line is actually worth your time if you do have Fallout 76 installed and updated. Is it worth re-downloading the game or buying the game? No, but do keep in mind, this is a positive addition, and what's going to happen is once the Wild Appalachia season is done, I will conclude it all by rounding up everything that we had played, giving my entire review of the season, and then determining for you at that point if it is worth picking up the game or not. So for those of you who listen this deep, there is your answer on whether or not you should pick up the game. Please pass it on in the comments to those who are going to inevitably ask me, Matty, is it time to pick up the game? Because sometimes people don't watch this deep into the video. So for those of you who are the real MVPs and actually do so, thank you. Also, in the middle of this quest line, you're going to get a brand new legendary weapon called the Fixer, which is pretty much a silenced combat rifle. It's not a brand new model, which I also found a smidge disappointing because I was more understanding with survival mode, adding in the weekly legendaries and them having rewards tied to the challenges that are in game, being something that's not always going to offer a brand new model. But when it comes to a actual quest line where Bethesda Game Studios historically historically been known to deliver us these brand new weapons in these cool quest lines and for them to be unique from all the others. I was kind of sad about that, but maybe it was a balancing decision as well, because Fallout 76 has some balance issues when it comes to survival mode, so you don't need just one more stealth focused weapon being able to be broken in game. But still, folks should be aware that you are going to get a new weapon, but yes, it is not going to offer a brand new model or feel to the game at all. Anyway, that'll do it for my, I guess, mini review of the quest line in Fallout 76 that has just been added here on April 9th. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments down below. Did your experience bug out? Did it give you hope for future storytelling in Fallout 76? Hit me with all of them hot takes down below. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.